Hello, beauties. I have another amazing being with me, and we are here to have an awesome conversation with you. I have with me Sarah Bolton, and we are here today to talk about Sarah Bolton's bold life. This is another episode of Living a Bold Life. This is a weekly series. If you are returning, thank you so much for showing up, for holding space for these stories. Not only is it healing for those of us who share, but it's healing when you bear witness. Keep in mind, what you're getting is a snippet of this person's journey out of a wide, expansive life that has been lived and will continue to be. And I never know what my guests are going to share either. So it's equally fun for me. And if you are new to this, this is not a series where everyone's jumping out of airplanes or anything like that. I'm a believer that living a bold life is kind of whatever you say it is. Sometimes we share about those leaps because leaps are part of it. But sometimes it's just like, I woke up today. There's a lot going on. That felt pretty dang bold. So we're just here to share snippets of people's journey to leave you inspired, to leave you empowered and present to the possibility for all. And so without further ado, welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Jen. I'm so excited to be with you today and
I am
have this
so excited to
conversation.
have you here. You've got your cute little friend in the background.
Yep. There's another one. He'll be around, I'm sure.
We'll probably see them boing behind you as we chat.
Yeah.
My favorite part of Zoom. So you all, I'm going to share with you what Sarah has given me to share. But I know Sarah, she's a colleague, she's a friend. She and I actually went through the same coaching training together, but not together. And I get to meet so many amazing people that way. So, and Sarah is with us kind of in the middle of her transition, and transition can be a lot. So thank you for putting something in your schedule when you're, anchoring and rooting and doing all that good stuff right now.
My pleasure.
Right. And so Sarah Bolton is a life coach and the owner of Good Girls Gone Great Coaching. I love that. How creative. She works primarily with women and helps them own their voice, their impact, and their power. You all have heard me talking about that a lot. As someone with an invisible illness and also a recovering good girl, she is a stand for women to fully trust themselves, to know what's best for them so that they can speak up and get what they need. Oh, I love that. That is so, so, so important on so many levels. And then Sarah goes on to share ways that you can connect with her, and whatever platform you are watching this conversation on, I'm going to have all those links. So that way, if you want to follow Sarah and see more of her journey, if you want to reach out to share anything with her, ask anything, you will know how to get a hold of her. So thank you for sharing that with me, Sarah, so I can share you with the world.
My pleasure. That is little Petunia, Princess
Oh,
Petunia.
hi, Princess Petunia.
She's
Oh.
trying to catch her tail.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. I love when there's that extra little vibe going on. Thanks for being here, holding space, Princess Petunia. So you all, I ask the same 5 questions in all of these interview series to really illuminate the similarity that many of us have and what goes into this bold life, but also to show you the vast, unique differences that we all have, because we are different, we are unique. And so I know this can be challenging to choose, especially when you are a coach and you are working with a coach, because part of that walk is constantly being up to new stuff that stretches you. So I am excited to hear what you're going to share. So Sarah, out of the many bold moves that you have made in your life, what is the one that you feel called to share with me, with our listeners in this moment?
I was thinking about various bold moves that I've made, and the underlying or higher up context throughout all of these bold moves was actually trust.
Mm.
So I
And
can share.
watching this, you've heard trust come up quite a bit. So notice that trust is coming up again. And it's going to be exciting because every single person who talks about trust brings a different conversation. So we get to hear how trust has been woven into Sarah's bold moves. Yeah, say more if you will, Sarah.
Yeah, so I would say that I grew up, I guess the title of my business, Good Girls Gone Great. I say that I am a recovering good girl because I did follow all the rules and do what I was told. And, I had this life plan that was set out for me. After high school, you go to college, you get a great job, you get married, have a family. The whole plan was already laid out for me. And then I started questioning all of that. What
Mm.
if that isn't actually the plan? And trusting myself to know what's best for me. And I would say this started out when I'd finished college. I was working in the hospitality industry, working as a bartender and a server. And I decided that I wanted to go back to school, not college, not to get my master's like I should do,
Right.
but I decided to go to cosmetology school, something that I wanted to do for a long time. And I always thought, hmm, no, that's not what you do. I already went to college. Cosmetology school is for people right out of high school,
Mm.
going to a junior college. So it kind of went against everything I had been taught. And I remember sharing with my family that I was going to cosmetology school, and the reaction I got was probably the one that you're expecting. Why would you go to cosmetology school? You already went to college. And I think that was one of the first bold moves I took. And I share that because cosmetology school for me was something that I wanted for myself, aside from what everyone else wanted for me in my life.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny because even when I was reading your bio, your business name reminded me, if you don't know her, Carrie Wren actually is down here in Charlotte and she's an AC grad as well. And she had a program or something at one point, like from good girl to grown ass woman or something. And it's very similar, to where followed all the rules and then blah, right? And so I love trust. So, and I know a lot of people watching can resonate, and those, of us who can't, how cool that we get to hear someone else's journey. So you grew up, where the path was kind of laid out for you. And, some of us do question the laid out path and some of us never will. So how awesome that you had that wherewithal in there to start questioning it. Even beginning to question it can be bold, because even just the questioning of it opens up stuff. And then the questioning had you have to choose trust. Because even when you started questioning it, you could see some of your answers brought up the shoulds, brought up the story. And so you had to work through story, which is bold. Um, and I can relate to this, when you share things that you're doing with people in your life and they don't get it, and then they kind of mirror your fears back to you, and it's like, oh man, this is already in my space. Now it's bigger. And to have to keep trusting when there's pushback. I mean, that's like boldness inside of boldness inside of boldness. So I really want to acknowledge you for your courage.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that takes a lot. And anyone watching who has questioned anything knows that it takes a lot. Some environments that we're in let us question things well, and some it is not easy to question things in. So thank you for sharing that. And so Sarah, for the next question, don't get like stuck in a box if you need to expand on how it's written a little bit. For most of us, when we do make that move, there is a push come to shove where we're like, I've got to do it. But if it wasn't like one thing, feel free. Some people feel called where it's more organic, where there might be like a series of things. But for you, what was kind of in your space that really got you to say, I have to do this. Now is the time for this. I've got to make this move for myself.
Yeah, this actually happened with so much ease and flow and magic that I couldn't ignore how perfect it was. I had met a gal. I was driving for a rideshare company and I picked up this gal and she was a hairdresser and we got to talking and I said, "Oh, where did you go to cosmetology school?" And she shared that she went to the city college. They had a great program, and I was in shock that I checked out some of the private schools around town, and I wasn't really open to taking on any more student debt. And this program, I went home that day and looked up the program, and I ended up qualifying for the financial aid that was available. The next program was starting in just a few weeks, and everything seemed to align so perfectly that just felt right. I trusted that it was the right path for me.
I love that. Some of my favorite words: ease, flow, magic. And you said you couldn't ignore it. And I want to give you a little bit more credit there because you could have, but you totally chose to play and dance in that and not. And one of my favorite words, aligned. So, listeners, watchers, viewers, notice if things are so easy in your life that you think it's wrong because it's so easy and you ignore it. Sometimes we get those parts where if it's not chaotic or dramatic or hard work, we think it's not for us. But like what Sarah is speaking to, I think it's just, it doesn't always align like that. Let's be honest, right? But when it does, it just, to me, it seems like there's such a readiness, like on all the levels, right? Like the timing, the thing. And, we do tend to get messengers, like the person who got in your car. And when I actually signed up to join my coaching program, not having ever wanted to be a coach, it was very similar to what you just shared. And it was kind of like, I can't ignore these signs, or I won't, right? So yeah, I love that. I love that it was so easeful for you and that you were in a space where you could see it and access that trust. So y'all, if you're not in a space to access that trust that Sarah is talking about, find someone to help you. Find someone to help you. Because sometimes when we just trust, we will take the leap, right? We know there's a net there. Awesome. So Sarah, for you, what I found for me, for our guests, once we've made one of those types of leaps, it typically always goes on pretty well. And for most of us, we keep making leaps, we keep making leaps, we keep making leaps. And again, you're a coach and you work with coaches, so I know that you have to keep making leaps, especially in the leadership program for AC. So, is there a formula per se, or are there things that you know you have to do to set yourself up to keep staying in this conversation, to keep staying in this game? Some non negotiables, or just whatever comes to mind for you, where you're like, yep, these have to be here for me to keep doing this.
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier that there kind of seemed to be this path that was carved out for me
Yep.
that I should take or I should follow. You should go to grad school, you should get your master's, you should study this, and you should work for this company. And, there were a lot of shoulds in the space. And then what I realized was that things don't go according to plan a lot of the time. And
Say that one more time for everyone to hear.
yeah, things don't go according to plan. I always think of The Last Word on Power, the
Mhm.
book by Tracy Goss, one of my favorite books. And she says that life doesn't turn out the way that it should or it shouldn't.
Mm,
Life turns out the way it does.
mm,
And so, after I went to cosmetology school, I a few other bold moves that I made along the way. Like I mentioned, I quit my job at the restaurant to pursue, my business. I had a small face painting business. I would work as a party entertainer, go to children's parties, paint their faces. It was really fun. I got to dress up in lots of different fun costumes and dress as characters, and that was a lot of fun. And along with cosmetology, I began having these health concerns that came up.
mm.
Again, not according to plan. The plan was to work in the beauty industry and have my own business. And the I was eventually diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and this neuromuscular condition impacts the muscles in my body. So I will experience sudden episodes of muscle weakness, particularly my hands. Sometimes one of my eyes gets a little droopy on one side. Sometimes the muscles in my face, it's difficult for me to smile or even speak at sometimes.
Mm,
And again, this theme of trust came to play.
mm.
I'd been going to various doctors trying to determine what was going on with me when I couldn't use my hands or my eye was bothering me.
Scary.
And a lot of doctors dismissed me, told me that I was perfectly fine. You're probably just stressed. You should try doing yoga. And, there's nothing wrong with yoga. I believe in yoga. And I knew that deep down that that wasn't the answer. There was something else going on. And yet, for 4 years, I didn't have the answers. Um,
That seems to be pretty common for a lot of people I know with autoimmune stuff. It has taken a while to get a diagnosis, and it's often just like it's nothing for a while, it seems like, or just go do some yoga, go eat cleaner or sleep more, right? Which are important, but aren't the solution to autoimmune disorders. So yeah, that's a lot of trust in that process.
yeah, I finally reached a point where I had gone to a different neurologist.
Mhm.
I had gone and done some tests. They did a test where they placed little electrodes on my face to test the muscle strength. And that in itself was quite uncomfortable and maybe a little bit traumatic, I would say.
Yeah.
And at the end of that test, the doctor brought me into another room and he said, your test came back normal. And at that point, I reached my breaking point and I was unwilling to accept that all of the things that I was experiencing were just in my head, or that I was just stressed, or I was making this all up. I knew that there was something going on, and I, at that point, demanded that they continue to run more tests
Mm,
until they got to the bottom of it.
good for you.
So, yeah, they did. They said, well, I guess we could do a blood test. And
To
it blew
think
my
that you can't
mind.
even bother to try a blood test? Come on, right?
Yeah. And they kind of, the thing that really bothered me was the doctor said, you don't want me to tell you that you have some terrible disease. And I said, I actually want you to tell me what the heck is going on with my body.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And just to be actually acknowledged and, I hear you. I hear that there's something happening over there. So,
I very much get this, and anyone watching this who knows my journey, mine started with a car accident, and then a lot of things that sprung up from that, and it took years and years of advocating for the right services. It's a lot, and I really acknowledge you for that. And so, Sarah, I love what you're sharing for you, because a lot of people, when they talk about the formula, it's very different, right? It's oftentimes their self-care routine. And so you're bringing it a little bit of a different direction, which I love, because one of the boldest moves you ever made is trust. And then part of your formula for making bold moves is trust. That's what I heard anyway. What I also heard for you, part of your formula is it's persistence. And another one, and anyone knows my background, which you might not know. I used to work as a low vision therapist and vision rehab therapist for a while. So one of my masters is rehabilitation counseling, which is not addiction. It's disability, being like the go between vocation and employer. And so a huge part of what I trained my clients in was advocate, advocate, advocate. Be noisy, call every day, email every day. I don't care. We need to make noise. And so I love that you shared that, because it's such a muscle to go on to serve you, I bet, in ways you might not have even imagined.
yeah, definitely. I, I saw that if I didn't speak up, I was going to continue on, living at the effect of whatever was happening to me. And I reached a point where, I demanded that they continue running these tests. And sure enough, the blood test came back, and the normal amount of antibodies in the blood was around zero point 0.5, and my levels were at 151.
Whoa. Wow. It's so interesting to me how they don't just want to do a blood test first with stuff. Wow. Okay. So then they were like, okay, we need to research this. Something's going on. Did that spring them into action?
Yeah, so I came into the doctor's office the next week and they said, okay, we need to tell you that unfortunately you do have an autoimmune condition called myasthenia gravis. And they said, and there is some good news. While it isn't curable at the moment, there is medication that can support you to live a better life. And also, I have to put in that one of the potential side effects of this medication is the possibility of having loose stools. And I jumped up in the air and said, "Yes,
Right?
thank you." And the doctor looked at me very confused. And I said, "Thank you for, validating my experience, what's going on. And I'm super excited that there's something that can support me moving forward."
Yeah, right. Like loose stools aren't exciting, but as opposed to what you had been living with, take them if that is the thing, right?
100%.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing something so vulnerable here.
Yeah.
Very appreciated. I know and trust that whoever needs to hear this message is going to be receiving this episode. Um, and so, Sarah, for you, and you kind of shared about two bold moves. One with your diagnosis and one with you know questioning your set plan. And so, feel free to speak to one or the other, to both. But for most of us, we're not psychics, but we can hypothesize and guess. Where do you think you might be in life now had you not gone on to make that bold move? Just kept things going as they were.
Yeah, I see myself really burnt out, pushing myself. Um, I'd probably be critically ill if I didn't trust myself to know that something was not right. I needed to speak up, that, I didn't need to work 3 jobs in order to pay my bills, that I could actually trust that there was a way to prioritize my health and my well being and also be able to earn the income that I needed.
Yeah.
And, coaching was such a blessing in working with a coach while I was going through this journey, having that support, but also when I decided to start the coach training program, I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I didn't know the how, and yet I trusted that this was the path forward for me. It really did check all the boxes as far as having the flexibility in my schedule, being able to prioritize my well-being. If I need to schedule time each day for to take a nap, I totally can. I can, if there's any well-being breakdowns, I can talk to my clients and communicate that with them. And I think it also gives other people permission to prioritize themselves too, because, if our well-being is out, it's not a stable foundation to create your life upon. So,
Yeah, I love that. And what you just shared about where you'd be had you not made that move. You're not the first person who said, if I would have stayed, I would be burnt out. I would be pushing, I would be ill. In fact, quite a few people have shared that. And it reminds me of a call I had with a client right before this. And she's a leader in a startup, and it's a fast pace. And we talked about how today, and not to diminish anyone's experience out there, but we talked about, to a degree, how stress can be a choice, because we try to blame the environment, on stress, but really It's how your system processes stress. And there's so many tools out there and so many lifestyle changes we can make, but don't, so we get put in these situations. So for you, it was, in order to not get burnt out, in order to not push self, in order to not get ill, it's not going to look like doing a bunch of self-care. I actually have to make some choices and really look at where I'm choosing to be and spend time. And so I love that you're sharing that, y'all. And again, there is no judgment here. Whether you choose to make the move or not make the move, you're all good. The point of this piece is just to get you to see that either way, there's an impact. You stay, there's going to be an impact. You leap, there's going to be an impact. And your job is to think about which one do you want to be with? Certainly plenty of people choose burnout, pushing, and illness. Look at this country. Plenty of people choose that. It doesn't have to be the way, though. You can take leaps. So thank you for being a leader in that regard and showing people that there can be a different path if they want that. So powerful. So powerful.
Yeah, and no matter the circumstances, there's always going to be some circumstances. For me, it was this autoimmune condition, invisible illness.
Yep.
For other people, there's other things, other circumstances. And I think the important piece here is that we get to choose how we be about all of those circumstances.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you have already shared so much. You've already given us so much wisdom. And so you may feel called to recap something you already shared if you really want to drive that home. Or there might be something else in this moment that you're really feeling called to share. But this is where you get to leave our fabulous audience with one last piece of sage wisdom. What are you feeling called to say in this moment, Sarah?
I would say to really trust yourself that, your heart, your intuition, your body, they all will speak to you if you listen. They have all the answers you need. All of the answers are within you. And if you choose to trust that everything is always working out for you, then it will. And also, getting supported. You don't have to do it all alone. Two of my favorite modalities for support are therapy and coaching. And there's lots of other ways to get supported. And really trusting that even if you don't know how it's going to look or how you're going to create the money to pay for it, just trusting that you are worth the investment. It's your life and you got one life to live. So get the support that you need and trust yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And trust and support is certainly come up in a lot of these. I love that you mentioned to trust the heart, the intuition, and the body. We try to do a lot from here. That's not where you're going to find it. The body has a lot of wisdom. Intuition tends to be more here. I love that you brought that up. And so therapy and coaching have come up a lot in these episodes. And listeners, just a reminder that if I think we're pretty well versed in these days and times with therapy, but coaching is still a little bit newer. If anyone is interested in learning more about that, whatever platform you are watching this video on, I do have a bunch of coaching misunderstood videos where it gets into a lot of what it is, what it isn't, because it's a pretty new field. And pretty unregulated. So if you want to know more, check those out. You can ask me, you can ask Sarah. We're both coaches. We've both worked with coaches, so we know both of the angles. And I love, the how to make it happen. You all, when you go to trust, it's so normal that it's going to be challenging to do so if you don't know how. But do your best to get out of that linear way of living in the world, because it's not really linear. That's just, a farce. But kind of similar to Sarah, when I went through my coaching and leadership training, it was half of my annual salary. That was a lot of stinking money. I didn't know how I was going to pay for the program, let alone go to Chicago for it for a year. I went for 2 years after, mentor coached, and make way more money in my business than I ever made working for anyone else. And like Sarah, I did not know how. It was a bold ass, crazy declaration with oodles and oodles and oodles and oodles of support. Because just remember, when you are getting therapy and you are getting support, it's so you can actually be more independent. Let that sink in. It's so you can be more independent. Anyone who's really supporting you is letting you take your hands off the wheel and sit back so that your answers can rise to the surface. They're not doing it for you. So thank you for sending everyone out on those. What I love about these interviews is people could watch a minute of it or the entire thing, and they're going to get the snippet they need. They're going to get the snippet they need. So generous listeners, as always, if there's anyone that just comes to you when you watch this, please share. I can't tell you how many people have gotten permission to do things or just be okay with where they're at or whatever it is. But these interviews have really given a lot to people who need to see them at the right time. So share if there is. And Sarah, thank you for being here. Thank you for being authentic, for being vulnerable, for sharing. Oh, the light just went off. I told you I have this crazy light and it's just doing fine. And all of a sudden, right at the end, it's like, we're done. We're not done yet, light. Okay. Stay on. Now it won't turn on. Throw the remote over there and deal with that later. But thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Such a gift to get to spend time with you today and to get to share you with the world.
Thank you so much for being with me and for extending the invitation my way. I appreciate you, acknowledge you. Yeah, I love the work that you're doing. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks to each of you. We wouldn't have this if we didn't have people watching it. And we will be back for another week with another amazing human. And until then, take such exquisite care. Bye.